Once again, here on Titan Media Day, I'm Paul Condry along with Scott Cooper, the head coach of the Titans. Titans, of course, you can hear them exclusively right here on Regional Radio Sports Video. Coop, first of all, let's just talk about last year's group and just some of the lessons learned from your squad. Certainly from a record standpoint, not where you wanted it to be, 13 wins. Give us an idea on what kind of things defined last year that we'll see different this year.
Well, I think a lot of it was just getting experience. You know, we played 4 freshmen and 2 sophomores in our lineup last year, and we started out the year about how you'd expect with a group that was playing that young. But as we got more and more experience, we got better and better. And I think we started the year off like 3-11, and then the second half of the season we were roughly 10-6. So things got a lot better as the year went on. Still some up and down, but definitely a lot of growth, and hopefully that continues into this season. That we've talked a lot about trying not to take a step back and continue that growth and move into the next thing. And one of the things we always talk about philosophically is when you have young teams is you got to do it's there's 3 stages to it. You got to teach them how to play, you got to teach them how to compete, and you got to teach them how to win. And I thought we learned how to play last year, and at times we learned how to compete. So that's really the next step for us, is learning how to compete and learning how to win now.
The last 2 or 3 years, it's been kind of a roller coaster of a ride for your program, because you've had some injuries that certainly would have derailed a lot of basketball teams, a lot of programs. You've had some things also that were out of your control that happened during the program. So those kind of things and that adversity is going to do one of 2 things for you as a coach. The one that's going to make you kind of get into a shell. I don't think that's been the case. I think you've kind of grown a lot through those adversity in your own right, as well as your players.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I think it's anytime you're a first-time head coach, there's things you got to learn. I was an assistant for 11 years, but there's different. It's different when you're moved down a seat. So one of the things for me especially is we had a really good year there in 2015-16, and but we had 6 seniors on the team, and one thing I took from that is you got to build some balance in your team, because the next year it was a hodgepodge of trying to put the pieces together. Not that we started out 10-5 or something like that, but like you mentioned, we had some injury issues, and then things fell apart, and all of a sudden we're down 2 classes, and we're in trouble with some stuff off the court, and that changed things completely. So when we kind of started the rebuild process, one of the things we really looked for was to get some balance into our classes, and we've got that now. We got about 3 or 4 guys in every class, so that when we lose a good class like we did there in 2016, that we can sustain, and that's something we've really tried to build towards. And then our players, just getting that experience through that rebuilding process. We started young, like we talked about last year, and again, teaching that growth and teaching what it is to play at this level and how to compete at this level has really been the next step for us.
Your system has really not been a situation, you never had any problem scoring or shooting the basketball. The question's always has been on defense. You got to get better defensively if you're going to make a run at the CCAC title, or if you're going to end out in North Dakota playing some basketball when it's all said and done. So let's just talk about how you can improve on the defensive side of the floor.
Yeah, and some of that comes with experience too. We had 2 years ago there, we had a senior-laden team that was very good defensively, but because of some of the guys we lost offensively, we struggled a little bit. But a lot of it was just experience, and you're kind of seeing that now. We've got a much more experienced team, and it's interesting to see in practice. We've got a chance to be one of the best teams in the country offensively this year, but defensively, we're giving ourselves trouble in there because we are a lot more experienced and we're doing some things better. And there's still a lot of things we've got to improve on, and we've got to kind of understand who we are. It's one of the things we talk about quite a bit too, in terms of what our capabilities are. So we've got guys like Miles Tracy that can defend 5 different positions, but we've also got guys who maybe can only guard 1 or 2 type of guys, and they got to know how to handle those situations. So some of that's going to come with experience, and some of that's just going to come with reps and practice. But we think we're making a lot of strides there, and we think we're going to be a little bit more balanced this year because of it.
6 of your top 7 scorers and minutes played are all returning for the Titans. Plus, you have some really encouraging kids who are going to be playing Titan basketball for the first time. So optimism has got to be off the charts for your squad. Let's just talk about blending some of that experience as well as some of the new kids.
Yeah, and that's been a little bit of a challenge in practice, although I think it's starting to come together. But anytime you've got as much, and really, if you look just at conference stats, we actually have our top 7 players back from last year. But anytime you blend in, like I said, a group that finished real strong, and now we're adding 3 pretty significant pieces to that, it's tough. And guys' roles have to change a little bit, and everybody's got to accept what it's going to take for us to be good. But we do have a lot of potential, and we got a chance to be really good. With what we've got, this is far and away the most talented team we've had since I've been here, and I think if we can stay healthy, eligible, and out of trouble, that we've got a chance to be a national tournament team. But my dad used to say potential is just a fancy word, it means you ain't done nothing yet. So
All right, let's turn our attention to the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference and talk about where you guys look at the landscape. You look across town over at Notre Dame, Indiana. Mike McBride's Holy Cross team certainly had a really good year last year. So that's a team that here locally, let's just start right there. You got to be able to beat those guys a couple times this year and have good success in the CCAC.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about an experienced team. Hey, they've got one of the better ones. With everybody they've got coming back, obviously they lost a couple pretty significant pieces, but they've got a chance to be really good. And we've got to be able to, again, put up with, and compete with those experienced teams. They're certainly going to be one of the better ones. Obviously, they play a little different pace than what we do. So, when we go into those games, we got to understand how to control the tempo the right way and things like that. And again, that's part of that learning process. But there's going to be a lot of those teams this year. Olivet Nazarene, who won the conference last year, has every single guy back, including the best player in the conference. St. Ambrose, who had one of the better teams in the conference last year, has every single guy back. So we're certainly not unique in having as much back as we do. I think what we're trying to do is, take it to the next level by being able to add the talent that we did.
Can you project ahead how many teams from the CCAC may go to the NEI National Tournament Series?
That's tough to tell because you got to know what every other conference is doing. But I think we're a legitimate four-bid league this year. I think adding in IU Northwest, obviously that right away gets us 3 automatic bids. They tend to, get a little. The selection committees tend to get a little loopy when you're getting more than 3,
Sure.
But a lot of times. But I think the league's going to be deep enough in terms of talent this year and experience, which is something that we haven't had in our conference for the last couple of years. That we're going to have probably 5-6 teams in the conference that legitimately could get to the national tournament. I think the realistic number is probably 4.
Let me give you an open-ended question about your squad in specifically. If you look at your group, this team is going to have a great team offensively and defensively if these 2 or 3 guys step up and have monster years for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's going to probably start with our new guys, with Peyton Staples, depending on what his health is like, and Cortland Martin's a guy we added from University of Southern Indiana. Both those guys are really talented and have played at higher levels than what we are. But a guy like Sergio Diaz that we added in too, that was a big-time scorer in junior college, and how he blends in. And if those guys can adapt their games to our returning guys, I think we have a chance to be really special offensively. Defensively, I think it's going to work the other way. I think it's going to be our returning guys. I think guys like Danielle Meredith and Miles Tracy and Miles Simmons that have played significant minutes, and Kennedy Washington, and those guys, if they can step up and really live up to their potential that we've talked about, and all those guys have the potential to be very good defenders. I think that we can be pretty good on that side of the ball too.
One thing that's been really neat locally is Holy Cross, Bethel. You play all the local teams, so the local fans should have a field day of getting out and seeing some great basketball. When you get into those local games, and now IU Northwest is locally too, I guess you can put that in that vein. What does that bring to the local fan base?
I think it's just locally, I think one, we typically, not as much this year, but typically all those teams that you're talking about have a lot of local kids. So it's the kids that the people around here have watched growing up. Guys like Peyton Staples, or in the past when we had T.J. Benner or Taylor Brooks, or
Sure.
those type of guys. They got a chance to see those guys taking the next step. So that right there's a rooting interest in it. But also, I think our kids on our campuses all interact with each other, outside of obviously the athletic and the athletic arena in the classroom. That there's some rivalry in there, and they're people that all know each other, so that brings on an added interest in it too. And the fourth element to that is especially with IU Northwest and us is we recruit against each other a lot, and I think so that adds it from a coaching standpoint. All right, where are we at now with who we're able to get and who they're able to get? So I think that on a lot of levels generates a lot of interest, especially in the area, and hopefully those games have always been the ones that people have turned out the best for, and hopefully that continues.
Big things expected here on the Indiana University South Bend campus here at the Student Activities Center. For Coach Scott Cooper, I'm Paul Condry. We'll be back with more of IU South Bend Media Day after this.